librarian invited me down. Every year they bring in an author from somewhere around the country. And so they invited me, the librarian invited me to spend the day, and I spent the day at Southwind Elementary and did readings and question and answers and had a nice lunch and things like that. Well, and they also sent home a order form so that the parents could order the books that they wanted, and then I autographed them, whoever bought books. Well, Dr. Boyd's son was in one of the classes. I think he was in 5th grade then.
Yes.
And she ordered the books, and she loved them. And I think she sent me a letter. She called me. She contacted my publisher and wanted to contact me because she wanted to have her students at Ole Miss.
I was at the University of Memphis then.
Interview me. And they sent me a bunch of questions by snail mail. Remember that? They sent me a bunch of questions, and I replied by snail mail. And I think, based upon that, Dr. Boyd wrote her first journal.
My first publication.
About using JoJo the City series in the social studies classroom. And I do believe you've written, about 3 journal articles?
Yeah.
And a textbook chapter.
Yes.
So, but that's how we connected. And then her students used to send me email questions, and I would email answers back. And about 2 years ago, we started doing Skype, I think.
Yeah.
So we've been doing Skype every semester, at least fall and spring.
We did one summer session last summer.
In summer? Did we do summer?
Last summer.
So we've been doing that, and one time, in fact, I invited her to be my co-presenter for the National Council of Teachers in English. So we did that. They had their Indianapolis conference. So we have met face to face that one time. And we had a great time doing that too. So that's our history.
Okay.
And it's all because her son was in the 5th grade at Southwind Elementary.
He's a sophomore at LSU now.
Oh my.
Riding the train home with his girlfriend to meet me tonight. Not ready. Okay.
Okay, so that's basically our history. That's how we connected, and so we've been connecting ever since. And I'm thrilled. There's one other professor at Wayne State University here in Detroit. Now she uses my Who's Jim Hines, which is a book. Here it is here. I don't know if you can see the cover, but it's a chapter book for slightly older readers. She uses Who's Jim Hines in her social studies method classes, and she usually invites me to speak at 1 or 2 of her classes too.
And we actually did a blog together one semester.
Oh, that's right.
Christy and I, we're still supposed to be presenting and writing about that. We hadn't gotten around to it yet.
Please do, because she was very impressed, and I told her all our journal articles you had published based upon your class work with these books.
Okay, I'll contact her again.
Oh, and also I'm looking at a companion book to Who's Jim Hines, and last fall, your students, I asked them to send me Southern sayings.
Yes, my fall group.
And Dr. Boyd gave them extra credit if they posted them on the class blog. So that was very helpful. I used about 3 or 4 of them. And of course I used Full as a Tick. And that was Dr. Boyd's.
That's me most of the time.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, you can start throwing the questions my way.
Okay.
All right. One thing that we really liked was just the name JoJo, and we wanted to know where that name came from.
It's That's a good question. I wanted a name that had a rhythm to it, and I don't know. I just wanted a name that I thought would connect with the readers, young readers. I thought would like it. So that was just came to mind. And really, literally, it was no great burst of inspiration. Maybe it was, but no, I definitely wanted some kind of rhythmic name. And I thought JoJo would be good. And I think I had wanted to name him Joseph. So instead of calling him Joey or something like that, I just picked JoJo. No one has ever asked me that. Every time I do this, I always get a couple of questions no one has ever asked me. So that might be tonight's only one.
Okay. Did y'all have another one? 4. Okay.
We wanted to know, were there any events that inspired real life experiences that inspired the events in the books?
Well, sure. Now, when I wrote this book, my son, who is now an adult, living on his own in Pittsburgh, but he was 10 years old. And if you notice, JoJo is 10. Now, JoJo isn't my son, but I did use what I knew about 10-year-old boys in creating the JoJo character. So for Just Call Me JoJo, is that the book you read, Just Call Me JoJo? Okay. For that one, the impetus for the incident with Mr. Booth was the time I was at the mall with my son. And do you guys have Macy's down there?
Yes.
Well, this was when before Macy's was called Macy's and all around the country. I think it was Marshall Field before that.
Yeah, they
And I was, you know how they had the checkout kiosks where you just go up there. So I was in line to check out my purchases, and my son was over to the side, waiting, bored, whatever. So he was standing there, and I looked over, and I saw that he had his hands in his pockets. And I rushed over, left the line, I rushed over, I said, Isaac, get your hands out of your pockets. They're going to think you stole something. So that was a very momentous time during my time as a mother, because I realized that at that point, my son was no longer going to be viewed as a cute little boy. That at this point, he was at the point of maturity where he was going to be viewed as a potential criminal. And so, yeah, that was that's kind of inspired me to create the situation where JoJo is accused of being part of the gang, and Mr. Booth thinks that he trashed part of the store. Because when I wanted to create situations in each volume that particularly urban parents could relate to, and especially urban parents of color. And of course, any parent can relate to their child being falsely accused. But particularly parents of color, not just African American, but Hispanic, Arab American, whatever. There's certain points where you have to prepare your children, especially your sons, for the inaccurate and unfair assumptions people are going to make about them. Such as, I have some articles, and I bring them out when I speak in front of teaching groups or parents. A lot of Arab American parents tell their children, don't draw airplanes, you know, because of 9/11. Or when they go on trips, they won't take pictures of landmarks, like a state capitol or, you know, something like that, because they know that puts them under suspicion. So how do you tell your child that when they get ready to take an airplane, there are going to be some people on the plane, they're going to be afraid of them because they're going to think they're a terrorist? You know, how do you prepare your child for if they walk into a store, someone's going to automatically think they're going to steal something? So these are the kind of things that I wanted to address, and the incident with my son was the impetus for that. You know, even with this Trayvon Martin tragedy, I don't know if you've heard a lot of the folks talking about how they prepare their son for people thinking that, you know, if they're walking down the street wearing a certain kind of outfit, they're going to automatically be tagged as you know, a thief or someone to be afraid of or something like that. They call it the talk, quote unquote. I'm sure Dr. Boyd, you had the talk with your son.
Yes, ma'am.
So, so anyway, that was kind of the impetus for that. But I tried to do it in a way that the children would still find the story entertaining. And I wanted something also, because this is still the age where parents might be reading to their child. So I wanted something that the parents would find that they could identify with. So that's a long answer to your question, but that's kind of, that's it.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
thank
that's it.
you.
Okay, well, thank you.
I have a dream too. You all can come on next. That's the second group, Jean.
Hello.
You all introduce yourselves to her.
My name is Sharon. I'm invisible. Hello, I'm Wendy Michael. And I'm Danielle.
Hi there.
Okay, our first question for you is, we would like to know whether Mary McLeod whether or not she was a personal influence for you.
You know what? No, she wasn't. She was not a personal influence for me, but it's a very good question. I will tell you who was a personal influence for me. It was Ida B. Wells, or Ida Wells Barnett. Her married name was Barnett, Ida Wells Barnett. And she was a personal influence. She was an African-American journalist during the turn of the century, the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. And she owned a paper in Tennessee. Any of you guys live in Tennessee, or you're all in Mississippi?
I lived in Tennessee one time.
All Mississippi?